All right, so today we're doing a request management training. What that is going over how to manage a request in the system. So I know a lot of y'all probably haven't been in the system yet. So we'll go over a full overview of how to use the system once a request hits. So everybody can see my screen right here on this side, correct? All right, so right here, we can see we're in Hidden Valley Lake. Up at the top left corner, and we are in your sandbox right now. It says sandbox right next to it, but you can't see it since your name is kind of long. So what it means to be in the sandbox is that it's not viewable to the public. We'll be moving over to your production site before you go live, and that means that any request categories that you have in at that time, so pothole, street, your trash, those will be viewable by the public. So this is what the backside looks like whenever you log into the system though. And this is all of the requests that we have in the system right now. These are all test requests that we've made while we've been configuring the account. So first thing I'm going to do is go over making a request using our call taker interface. So if you get a phone call in and a resident wants to put in a request through the phone, we'll go to new on the top right corner. This is where I'll mention that my Zoom picture might be in this top right corner taking over. If it is, you might need to move it. But if not, it's right here, new in the right-hand corner, and then click request. And that's how we open our call taker interface. So one thing to mention is that I always recommend you'll have the app, the SeeClickFix app, and then you'll also have the portal where residents can put in requests that way. So I always recommend redirecting them to those two methods to allow them to put in the request. But inevitably, you will also get requests that you need to put in over the phone for whatever reason. Maybe they don't use the computer or a smartphone, or it's just easier for them to call it in. So this is what our call taker interface looks like. Here is our map view of your association. So I'm just going to drag and drop, but you can also type in an address right here. Going down, we'll see Hidden Valley Lake, and we'll see all of the categories that you have as well. Something to notice or to note real quick is that if I were to drag and drop outside of your association, none of the categories will come up. So if somebody were to call and they're outside your association and you type in the address, that's a good way to note that, like, oh, you're outside of our service boundary. That probably won't be an issue with you because I'm sure that y'all know most of the street names and addresses for your association. Okay, so just go ahead and put in a test request now. So just drag and drop on here. And let's do one for a power outage. Actually, I'm going to go down to something else. Let's see. Okay, let's do this one, the algae bloom. So going down, we have our description field here. This is where I could put green algae sitting on top of the water. You have this note right here. So if somebody's not sure what that looks like, then they can click this and see. I think there's some pictures attached to show what it looks like. So where did you observe this potentially harmful algae bloom? I'm just going to choose one of these options right here, and then I can put a date as well. Pressing this button means subscribing to this request as the call taker. So this is if you want to personally be kept up to date with this request, you can subscribe to it. But if you're just answering the phone to take the request, but you're not going to be the one completing it, you might not want to have to get any notifications on it. So subscribing to it means that you'll get notifications anytime that there's a status change, anytime somebody comments on it. So I'm going to unsubscribe to this because I don't want to be kept up to date on that, but that is up to y'all if you want to be.
Yeah, and Alicia, I think you would unsubscribe most of the time because you aren't the one who is assigned to this request. For Dave, like if you get something that you're interested in following up on back to the resident, or it's more of a problem, you may still want to get the nails on it. Sorry.
No, that's no problem at all. This is a good time to work out stuff like this. So that's great. Okay, moving down, we have the caller details. So we can get the caller's email right here. If I put an email in that they're already a SeeClickFix member, it will let me know right here if they already have a SeeClickFix account. So it's automatically going to associate this request with their account. So they will get an email right after this, and it will keep them updated with the request. It'll give them a link to the request. It will tell them that the request has, been received. If I put in an email that is not a SeeClickFix account, this will pop up right here. So it will send them an email invite to join. If they decide not to join, they won't get any future emails with updates. So that's just something to note. They also don't have to put email at all. But if that's the case, then the only way that they can be kept up to date with this request is by calling into our system, or by calling your office to get an update, or going to the portal and navigating the portal trying to find their request. So I do recommend putting everybody in as a user if they call. I know there's going to be your one-off people who are like, I don't want to give you my email. So that's totally fine. But we always do try to collect them anyways, because it's the best way to keep people up to date. So we can ask if they want to remain anonymous, and then the source for which you received this request, and I'm going to put phone. Do you have any questions so far about the call taker interface?
So with that source, we can ultimately then see the type of people who aren't using the system and maybe make a special marketing effort. If it's all walk-ins or certain people use the phone and choose not to sign up. And then maybe we can just do something to encourage them.
Normally too, during the phone call, while you're on the phone with them, you can let them know, like, so putting in your request and using the SeeClickFix system, I'd love to get your email address so that, you can sign up to be a member. So in the future, you can put the request in yourself and you don't have to wait until business hours to put in a request. So we try to incentivize them to use the system by telling them, like, you can do it after business hours. You don't have to wait till our office is open, and you can be kept up to date on the request without having to call us and, waiting on hold or whatever the case is. Okay, so I'm going to click log request right here. If we wanted to view the request, we could click view request. Don't bring us into the request page. All right, so now from here, I'm going to go back to our request right here on the top bar. And this brings us back to the list of all of the requests. So here's the one that I just put into the system. Now going over a request right here, we can see that it's automatically assigned to Adam. Automatic assignees have been set up into the system for most of the categories. So when a request is put in into a category, it automatically assigns somebody to take care of that request. This is a person that we are considering to be the owner of the request. So if it doesn't get fixed or finished, then that's who we're going to go to figure it out. Some of these are unassigned, and the issue with them being unassigned is that they might send the system open in this open status for a long time because nobody's taking ownership over the request. So that's why we like these assignees right here. So going through all of the details on this request, we have our request ID number. So if somebody doesn't give you their email, their phone number, anything, but they would like an ID number for reference, they could give you, or you could give them this reference ID number as a confirmation number when they put in a request. We have our assignee here. We have the address and the category it belongs in, and we have the date it was created as well. And if there's any associated media, so like a picture of the request, it would be right here. All right, so now we're going to go over our search and filter and our bulk actions on the top of the screen. So the first thing to go over is the search bar right here. Let's say that somebody calls in and they want an update on their request. They didn't give you, their phone number, their email. So all they have is this request ID number. So if I type one of these in, it will automatically pull up the one that's associated with it. You can also do the same thing with the address. So maybe they don't have the request ID number because most people throw those away. They have scraps of piece of paper all over their house with various confirmation numbers, knowing me. But they do have the address that happens. So they can give you the address. And it will also pop up that way. So that's how to use our search at the top. You don't have to use it just for residents, but for yourself as well. We also have some other options where you can filter, search and filter. So one is save searches by my assignment. Nothing's assigned to me right now, I don't believe. But if you click my assignment, anything that's assigned to you in that assignee field where we saw Adam's name, that is where I'll pop up anything that's assigned to you. So maybe every morning you come in and you go to look at your assignments to see what's assigned to you. We can also filter by various dates, various statuses, so open, acknowledged, or closed, who it's assigned to, a specific category. So we have all our categories right here. So that is how to use our search and filter. If you notice that often you're looking up the same search and filter options a lot. So like I often look at Adam's, maybe I'm his out of office contact. So when he's out of office, I take care of all this stuff. Maybe I save this search as Adam out of office, or out of office contact or something, so that I can easily refer to this search that I just created.
So that would, and we would probably use that most for, say, Jason's on vacation and John's going to take over. If we've set it up so that John will get an email, but this way he can actually filter out just what he needs.
Yep, and yeah, and that's mainly where most people use it is like, okay, I'm going to be like, maybe I am Adam in this situation and I'm going to be out of office. So I go to look. While I'm out of office, that algae bloom one needs to be taken care of. So then I could go in and reassign it to somebody else. So for testing purposes, I am going to go ahead and click this right here. And then in this bulk action bar at the top, I see assign. And I'm going to go ahead and reassign that to somebody else. I'm just going to do Linda for this one, just so nobody else is getting notifications right now. I did internal, it can be a public or an internal notification, and I'm going to update that and we'll see that the assignee changed to Linda. All right. So that's one way to use your search and filter. Other ways is maybe you just want to see any that were affiliated with, I see some animal ones in here. So we could do the lost, pets lost and found, and just look at any that are in that category, making it a little bit easier to view them. Okay, so moving on from that search and filter, we have these bulk actions at the top of the screen. So before we talk about this bulk actions, do we have any questions about anything that we've went over so far?
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. So there's a few bulk actions at the top of the screen. All of these can be done from within the request as well. So after I go over them right here, I'll go into the actual request where we can view the entire request and show them to you in there as well. So first thing we can do is we can change the status. Here's our status bar right here, and it shows open, acknowledged. We have another one called closed as well. Those are our public statuses. We have two other statuses, in progress and needs review. Those are ones that residents cannot see when they're in that status. That's just for your own internal workflow. But open, acknowledged, and closed residents can see whenever they are in one of those several views. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the status for this. So I click this check mark right here. What's good about this bulk actions bar is I can click several at a time and change the status of all of them. So I'll just go ahead and do that now. I'm going to change all of these to acknowledged. We have some prepared content in the system, and they change based on what the category is. For testing purposes, I'm just going to use this one. They're all different categories, so you probably won't be clicking a bunch of different categories at a time. But feel free to put any of the prepared content that you want in here. It just makes it a lot easier to type out, like whenever you don't have to type out the same message several times a day to have prepared content in the system.
Sorry, Allison. The way we decide to do that with the prepared content in advance is just to, rather than have a generic acknowledged button, we'll have security acknowledged button, maintenance acknowledged button, because they may say that they will send a deputy over right away, or pothole one, maintenance can have their, that way they don't have to scan through the whole list. Security can just scroll on straight down to their stuff. Again, we're trying to make it as easy as possible.
Perfect. Yeah, especially if if you have some phone numbers associated with those, you don't always memorize all of these phone numbers. So having the prepared content in there is a great way, so you don't have to memorize exactly what you type every time. And then also every person types a little bit different. So for terms of consistency, it's always great to just have them in there. So we went over the change status, and we can see all of those change to acknowledge from the open status. We can also add a due date in. Here's our due date column right here. So I'm just going to go in and look at this because we want to get this one taken care of. We don't want any dogs trying to swim in this lake and get any algae poisoning or anything. So we'll just go in and change this and say that we want it taken care of by Monday. So when I click that, it changes the due date right here in the system. Something else we can do is we can recategorize. So if it's in the wrong category, whenever a resident submits it, no problem, we can go in and change it. So let this one right here, maybe they commented on it afterwards and they were like, oh, we actually found the pet, we're all good. So we could just go now. I mean, we'll end up closing the status, but we could go ahead and recategorize it. Or maybe they found a pet, but they put it in the lost pet category. So we could go in and change this one. This also allows for public or an internal, and this will just give the resident a comment saying like, this has been recategorized, which isn't a bad thing for residents to see because it makes it look like actions are being taken on the request. So I'll keep that as public and update that. And now we can see it changed from pet loss to pet found category. I already went in and assigned Linda to this one, but I'll go ahead and assign somebody to this pothole one as well so we can see what that looks like. All right, so Gina takes care of potholes right now. Hope she knows how to do that one. So we'll do an internal notification for that and assign Gina to this pothole one. All right, we can also leave a comment on a request. So maybe we wanted to comment on this one. It's a week old. We want to see if the pet has, the home's been found because we haven't had any notifications on it. We can always comment and say, hey, did you find the owner of this cat? Maybe we just put an update on this. I know this category, I don't believe y'all are actually going to maintain the pets lost and found. It's just there for other residents to use, I believe, but maybe you just we're going through and closing these, so we could go ahead and comment on this one. All right, so I'm going to skip over mark as duplicate for just a second. We can also print a request. We can also print several requests, so we can click as many as we want. Press this print button and will allow it to print off the full request view. Something to note is it does print off any internal comments that we have on here as well. So just keep that in mind if you were to give this to a resident. It also can have internal functions on it. All right, so now we have this mark as duplicate. So our system has duplicate detection. And what that means is that whenever a request gets put in and it has the same address and the same category, our system will automatically say like, hey, this is a duplicate request. Do you want to do this? So instead of having to make several requests and having to maintain several requests that have the same exact address and issue at it, we can have people follow one single request that we maintain. Just makes it for easier upkeep. You definitely don't have to use this, but it's a recommended way that we do it. So I'm going to go back to make another request in our system, and I'm going to go make a duplicate request so we can see what that looks like. All right, wait for this to load. Okay, let's see, that was a pothole. All right, so whenever I go and I put in the same address in the same category, this pops up right here and it says that there's a potential duplicate. So now this is using our call taker interface. So if you're doing this for a resident, I would recommend just going ahead and adding them as a follower. Or when you may give them the option, I would just say like, oh, it looks like somebody's already put in a request for this. I'll go ahead and add you onto it so you can stay updated to it. So when you click add follower on here, it will bring you, which I can't do from this page since it's our sandbox site. We don't have where we can add residents in. But when you click add follower, it will give you this box to input their information in. So you can go ahead and add them onto the request. If you're doing this, if a resident's doing this from the portal view, which is our resident facing view, they will also get this notification asking them if they want to, continue on with the duplicate request. This is normally where we get duplicate requests in the system because residents don't care if there's another request that's already been put in for the same issue. In their minds, they're like, oh, if I put in another request, then it's going to be, like somebody's going to get to it quicker because there's more requests in the system for it. So this is where you're going to see most of your duplicate requests. So I'm already right here though, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on with this duplicate request so I can show you what we would do with those. So I'm just going to log this request and go back to our request screen. All right, so I go to our request screen right here and we can see that we have 2 pothole concerns, same exact address. So now what can we do with that? Normally what I do, and this, if you want to keep these duplicate requests in the system, you absolutely can. Hold on one second, let me turn off my messenger. I just got a message and I don't want it to interrupt our training. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so what we can do is keep the request that has been here longer in the system and keep the request that has more information at it. So we can see that this request has already been acknowledged. It's already been assigned to somebody. We have a picture associated with it. This request was just put in, nobody's assigned to it. There's not much information. So what we'll do is we can archive this request, and the person who was following this request when it was put in will now be following this one. So how this happens is we'll take this ID number right here, and then we'll check the request that we want to archive and press mark as duplicate. It'll ask for the request ID number of the one that you're going to keep, and it'll show you right here. And then we'll press update. So now this request gets archived. And like I said, the person who that put in this request or was put in as a caller or, the requester is now following this request. So they will get the same exact updates as the original poster. Are there any questions about a duplicate request or any of the other bulk actions?
Do your other customers see a lot of people that ignore the fact that somebody else has already entered this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, that is a common thing. It's they're like, well, if we put more in, they're inevitably going to get to it quicker. Like if they see that there's a bunch of people, especially if it's something like a power outage, they're going to go ahead and just keep putting in more requests. So unfortunately, we give them that option. So the duplicate detection works awesome whenever it's, somebody in your office putting in a request over the phone. But normally our residents pretty much disregard that. I mean, a lot of times we do have a lot of followers on requests, but normally they're people who want to be kept up to date with the progress of it. And it doesn't necessarily like something that bothers them. For instance, right now there's a park being built in town. And so I'm a follower of that request category because in my town, because I want to know the updates on it, but I have no personal gain or anything. I don't need to I didn't have to put in a request for it. I just want to know whenever this park gets updated so I can bring my child to it. So we do see a lot of followers on requests, but we also see a lot of duplicate requests. All right, so next thing we'll go over is an individual request itself. So far we've been looking at all of these requests and it can get kind of overwhelming right here. So let's break it down to a single request. So if we click anywhere in the white on a request, it opens up the side panel and it just shows us a little bit of information about the request. But we'll go ahead and view it, the full page view. We can click right here or click the blue anywhere on the request of the details for the ID number and open the request in a bigger view. So we can see this one's already an acknowledged status change. Like I mentioned before, open, acknowledged, and closed are public statuses that residents can see. In progress and need to review are just internal statuses for your own added workflow. So maybe it's been acknowledged, but you had to order a part, so you want your manager to know, or you want somebody to know that it is being worked on, it has been forgotten about. You might use these statuses right here. We have our request ID number right here on right above the picture. We can see our address, the details of the request, and any of the secondary questions that were answered. We can see that it was put in through a request form, which means our call taker interface, and the method that was used was a walk-in request. So if it was over the phone, it would say phone right here. There's a few other options as well that can be used. And then it shows who keyed it in. So that's the person who personally typed in the request for our resident. Going down, we have our comments. White comments are public, and then we also have internal comments that can also be filtered as well. So internal comments means that it's going to be going to somebody that is within your office or who is a member in the system. So I could use an internal comment if I wanted to tag somebody in this request to see if there's an update on it. So I could put the @ symbol, and everybody in your system has a handle, and it allows us to tag them in it. So internal means that residents can't see it, and we know it's internal because it's yellow. It's also indented, and it also shows right here that's an internal comment. We can also add pictures. So if you, a resident might add a picture themselves, or maybe you want to add a picture and say is this the pothole that you are referring to? I've seen instances before where a resident goes to report a pothole, but it's just like a tiny divot in the ground, and it's not enough of a pothole for where a community is going to fix it yet. So they'll post a picture like, is this the pothole you're referring to? Unfortunately, we don't repair potholes unless they're 6 inches deep. So we're going to close this request for now. Please keep us updated if it deteriorates more. So that's an area where you might put a picture in. Going up to the top, we have these category, who it's assigned to, due date, and the priority. All of those things were in our bulk actions bar. So we can change the category who it's assigned to. We don't have a due date in here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a due date for today for this request. We can change a priority level, high, normal, or low. We can print off the full request, the same button that we had on that bulk actions bar on our request screen. We can mark it as a duplicate. And we have another option right here that's flagging. So our system has moderators for it. And what that does is that if a request comes into the SeeClickFix system and it breaks our terms and conditions, so therefore it has inappropriate language, cuss words, something vulgar in it, any obscene language at all, then our system will flag it and it will be checked by our moderators before it would go onto your system. So if somebody were to put in a request and they use a cuss word in it, when it hits our system, our moderators would not allow it to go onto your system because it breaks the terms and conditions. Now, there are certain trigger words our system that our moderators pick up on. One of them is kill. So if I put in a request saying I'm going to kill somebody, it's going to get moderated by the system and the moderators will not allow it through. But if I were to put in a request saying like, hey, there's so many weeds at the park, can we kill those weeds? Obviously, within context, the word kill is okay. So our moderators will okay it and it will go onto your system. Our moderators work like every single hour, they'll come in and approve and deny any moderations that go through. The weekends they get on a few times during the weekend. So most residents don't know, or they don't notice that their request is even in moderations. They do get a notification letting them know like this has been moderated. And they'll get another notification whenever it hits the system. Most of the time, they know why it's been moderated. They know that they said something that was inappropriate or they said a cuss word. But it hits your system very quick after, since our moderators are in there all the time.
Allison, we've got a category out there that's roadkill.
Mm-hmm.
Kill is part of, I mean, normally it'd be one word, but would that automatically go to moderation? Should we maybe change that?
If it's one word, it's totally fine, roadkill. And also there's like a list of exceptions basically. So roadkill would be considered one of the exceptions, where if there's road in front of kill, automatically it picks up like, okay, roadkill, even if it's separated in the middle, it will accept it because it understands that roadkill is like a commonly used phrase.
Okay.
So that's totally fine. Do you have any other questions about the flagging? Okay, so like I said, moderations happen automatically, but this flagging button is if something comes into your system that has something inappropriate in it, our system didn't get it for whatever reason, and you want to personally flag it, you can press this flag button right here and it will automatically get removed from your system. So this might be somebody constantly is putting in spam requests, maybe you just have that annoying resident, you might have to flag them right here. And you can also flag a specific comment. So if you have, like I said, somebody comes on and spams your comment section, you might have to flag their comment, take it off your system. You can also flag a comment if you meant to do internal and you accidentally posted it public. You could just flag it and just say, hey, I meant to put this internal, and get it removed from the system. Though I do recommend that you don't put anything in the internal comments that you wouldn't want a resident to see. But it happens sometimes, so you can always flag a comment if you meant to do internal and you did a public one. All right, we can see right here our subscribers. I'm going to unsubscribe to this. So these are people who are being kept up to date with this request when changes are made to it. We have our status log, so it shows when it's been opened, acknowledged, and it will show when it's been closed as well. All right, so next we're going to move on to our map view, but before we do we have any questions about this full page request view?
You guys are probably the most common users of this because you're the ones who take all the requests right now that go directly to Dan, to me, or whatever. Alicia, you'll probably be the one right now that gets most of these until we can turn people over to where they're doing it automatically on their own. So we don't know. It depends on how well we roll this out and get people signed up for it. So it may be an increase in your workload for a while, or as you're on the phone with them, entering it. Dave, people, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So
I
what's
can't.
it?
I mean, until we start actually playing with it, at this point, I don't really have any.
Okay, we're good.
All right. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and move over to this map view right here at the top. What this does is it shows us a map and shows us all of the requests within it. Your residents have a very similar map view. Actually, before we get into this, I'm going to show you what it looks like for them, just so that everybody is aware of what residents can see whenever they're in the system. So I'm just going to grab their URL. This will be embedded on your community's website so that residents can put in requests that way. They also can use their app to put in requests as well. So right here, we can see that it shows a dot for any request that's in the system. And residents can click on it and view the specific request. There's also a list right here that shows all the requests. So if a resident's about to put in a request and they're like, okay, right here, I want to put in this request, and they click on it, they might see like, okay, there's already a request here. I could go ahead and follow it instead of putting in a request myself. Or maybe they just were like, oh, I want to be kept up to date on that pothole. I'm always running it over. Love for that to get fixed. Then they might go ahead and follow it right here as well.
So if we really push that feature, we may not get so many duplicate requests coming in.
Yeah. And they will, when they go to put in a request, it will, it shouts out to them as well. Like, this is a duplicate request. Do you want to follow it instead? So it does literally tell them exactly that when they're actually putting in the request. It will also, it will tell them straight up that it's duplicate. Would they like to follow it?
Okay.
So that's a safety measure in place where we were hoping that you don't get as many requests that are duplicate in your system.
Can you sort the map so there's only showing a certain category?
Yeah, so you can from right here as well, but I'll get into where on your side you can. So I'll move back over to your request map. This is the residence view. But from your request side, you can sort it. So here are all of your requests in the system. It takes a second for it to load. So you're only seeing that one right now. So give it a second to load all of the other ones. But I could do it by category. So if I have a specific category that I want to look at, maybe I want to look at anything that was relating to trash. I think we have a few of those in here. Let's go down and click a few other ones. We'll click that LG Bloom one, and we'll also click potholes because I know that that's in here as well.
I mean, essentially, if all the pothole stuff is loaded in there, that gives them a map on go do their work the day they fill the potholes.
Okay. So here are some requests that we have in our system, but based on these categories I just set. So let me go ahead and actually, I'll just keep all of those in. Let's say that they're similar categories, even though these are vastly different. The search and filter is very similar to the one in the request screen. So this will probably be used for workflow within your community where whoever fixes these will be like, okay, I don't want to be running all around the community today, so I just want to do potholes that are within this side of it. Then they might use this to find out like what's close to each other, which requests are close, so I don't have to be driving all around to fix them. We can also do it by assignee or by priority level. If we want to fix anything high priority before the weekend, then we might do that as well. We only have green requests up right now, but green is an acknowledged request, orange is an open request, and then blue is a closed request in the system. All right, so if I click on this request right here, that side panel opens and it'll show me all the information about it. So most likely though, I might look at this before I go off to actually fix the request, but maybe I'm out and I'm driving around and I'm like, where was that request again? I can't find it. This is very mobile friendly, so this can be used in the field as well. So I'm going to make this a mobile view just so we can see what that looks like. So as you can see, as I make my screen smaller, it automatically switches to a mobile view of the request. So we have our map view. They can get onto their browser on their phone and go to this website and see the request right here. So if I click on this request, It will bring us right to it, open up all of the details about it. So now let's say I'm in the field and I go and I fill this pothole. So the request is complete. I'm going to go ahead and change the status of it as well to a closed request. Let's see. Okay, I'll just use the. All right, I'm going to use that and that prepared content and then update it. And if I go down to the bottom in the comments, we'll be able to see that it's been a closed request and we have this update right here. That will go to the resident so they'll know about it. From this view, I can go back to my map view and see if there are any other requests. And we can see that the acknowledged pinpoint changed to a closed pinpoint. All right. So this was mentioned earlier that, you know, if we see people that are like, you know, calling a lot from the phone, maybe we need just marketing for them. Another time you might do marketing is by looking at your map view. So looking at this map view right here, we can see that we get a lot of requests that are right around like this main part, but like maybe way up here, we never get requests. Maybe they don't know about SeeClickFix. Maybe people don't really have to drive on these roads as much because, you know, these are just roads at the very back of the neighborhood. For whatever reason, they don't put in requests. So this could always be used for a marketing purpose as well, where we target areas that aren't receiving or that aren't putting in any requests and send them like a flyer, make sure that they know about SeeClickFix. You know, looking at this map, you can also show inequities within your neighborhood. So like, let's say we get a lot of potholes right around this area. Maybe this is where the entrance is. So maybe more road work needs to be done over where the entrance is. And you know, not much needs to happen down here because people aren't really driving around that area often. So those are just a few other reasons where you might use the map view. All right, so next thing I have on here is moving on to our reporting. But before we do that, do we have any additional questions?
I thought I knew a lot about the system, but I should just learn a lot more.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've been putting in a lot of the requests and configuring it, but yes, this whole entire thing, it's like, okay, wow, we haven't touched on that part yet. So there's always more to learn. All right, so I'll go to reports and I'll just say before we go into it all the way that there are several types of reports that we can make. So I'm going to show you this one, and then we have another one that's more of a high level or a more in-depth report. So this report right here just shows basically like how many requests have been put in, how many have been answered. So this is good to see a specific number, but then if you needed more details about the request, we have another form of doing that. So this is what our requests, or excuse me, our report screen looks like. We have this sentence at the top and we can change this to configure a customized report for us. So I can filter it by a category or an assignee. We might do an assignee if we wanted to like, maybe for an annual review for an employee, we might change it to assignee, just see how many they have changed in the system. We can do it by all time or a specific time frame. I'll do all time for our purposes. We can compare it to a certain date range. So maybe you wanted to see like around a holiday, how many more requests do we get in the system? Or maybe we just did this big marketing, you know, event. Let's see how many more requests we get right after it. We can change it to specific categories. So if you wanted to send out a report specifically to like Rumpke, then you could change it just to all of your trash ones, or maybe you want to send one out that's specific to anything relating to like the algae bloom in the lake, then you know, you can change it to a specific category. And then geographies, you have one geography in here, so we don't need to worry about that one. Okay, so this is the report that it created for us whenever we changed all of this. And now we'll go through the report, just talking about it. So, excuse me. All right, so first thing we have right here is our categories. Next, we have how many requests have been created in each category, how many have been acknowledged in each category, and how many have been closed in each category. It shows the days it took to acknowledge a request. So right now, you know, it's all mainly set to 0, but that will change. The days it takes to close a request. So we can see, you know, like this large item pickup took 5 days to close, which, you know, isn't an issue because Rumpke has to come out to do this. So that might be an average for y'all. You know, this tree one took 11 days for it to close. So those are just a few things to note. We have our SLA days, which is a service level agreement that you can put in for any category that you want to. This just, this right here would show how many days on average you want it to take to complete a request. So that can always be changed as well. We have an overdue column, so it shows anything that's past its due date. And we have an open column that shows anything that is still in that open status. And then we have open and overdue. This column right here is the most important column because if it's open and overdue, that means that it's probably been neglected because it hasn't been acknowledged, a status change has not occurred on it, and now it's past the due date that's been assigned to it. So what that probably means is that nobody's assigned to it or taking care of it. Maybe the person who's normally assigned to that category went on vacation for whatever reason, it's past its due date. So we would need to look into it at that point. So running a report like this, it can really be used just to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks because we don't want anything to ever have to be in this open and overdue column. So we created this report. A few things we can do with this, we can just download it. We can also send it out. This we can do on a frequency. So, maybe monthly we want to receive this report, or maybe weekly we want to receive it just so we can see that open and overdue column. We can do a one-time report as well. So that report can be changed. For the frequency, we can also have any recipients in it, so we can send it to specific people, and then we can make a title for the report as well. So this could be like just an all categories report, and we can send it to everybody on the team, or just send it to like specific managers or something like that. Okay, would anybody like to receive this report I could send to them?
I think you should send it to Dave.
Yep.
Okay.
Jamie.
I'll just do it one time. I'm not going to bog you down with multiple ones in the system. This is you, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll send this over. Okay, so that was one type of report that we have. The other type is where we can export requests to create a report as well. So to do that, I'm going to go back to this request screen. And what we can do is maybe you wanted to see any that were specifically about street related categories. And I could go down here and click any that are related to streets. It's just one of them, but I can also, click right here and I can export requests. So what that does is it's going to export all of the details inside this request. So if you needed the latitude and longitude, if you need the address, if you wanted all of the names of anybody that's put in a request in this category, then this is where you can get this information. If you press export, it will export it as a Excel document and a CSV file. So it just gives you a lot more information on the request.
Did you just say exports it as an Excel document?
Yes.
Okay.
Here, let me go ahead. Excuse me. Let me go ahead and export this and so you can see what it looks like. Just a second for it to load. All right, so I only did one on here, so it doesn't look like too much, but I'll go ahead and show it to you. Okay, can everybody see the Excel document?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll have the reporter's email. This was a guest one, so it doesn't have that information actually, but has the ID number for the request. It'll show the status of it, a summary of the request, the actual address, so going down. It has latitude and longitude of it, and then it has all of the answers for the requests and how they were answered. And then it shows all the times it took to answer it, the person that it took to assign it. So any information that was inside that request will be right here. So now something else that you can do, let me reshare to the correct screen, is you can set this up as a recurring export as well. You don't have to make this every single time. So to do that, we have to go to the back of our system. Y'all haven't really seen this part yet. Well, Gina and Linda have. So they're going to be more familiar with the backside of the system, but I'm going to go ahead and show it to you anyways. But we can export the request, but we can also go to manage organization under this avatar and go to a recurring data export. And that's where we can create one to send out to us within a frequency, just like our other reporting function can do. So, we can still choose the categories and we can have it sent to us once a week, a specific report. Okay, so one last thing to go over and then we're done. So that last thing is notices. But before we do that, do we have any questions about those and any of those reporting methods?
No. We're good.
So I'll move over to notices now. So notices is right here on the top of the screen. Whenever it's on the other page, that's one of our older pages. So it looks a little bit different. It's in gray for some reason. So just pointing it out again, it's right there. So we already created one notice a while ago whenever we were looking at it. I'll go and create a new notice now. So it's right here. So what notices are, these are going to be a location-based notice. So you can send it to people within your community. So in order for people to get this notice, they do have to have been somebody that, either has the app on their phone, they go to the portal, or they have their email in our system. So we have our internal title right here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and create a report now. Doing for a road closure. What's the name of one of your streets? I don't know, Main Street.
Alpine.
Line like that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the subject, what they can see, and then we have the full body. So the subject is what's going to pop up on their phone as like a subject line, and then it will have more details and they can click on it. So, whenever you're on your phone, you get a notification going across your lock screen, that is where it will show it. Whenever they click on it, it will open up the app and then it will show the full request on there. So we have our subject right here and then our body. So this is where we can put some more information. You can actually put as much information as you want to, well, up to 80 characters, but we could put all of the information within the subject line. Maybe we don't want our residents to have to go all the way and open it. So we just go right here and say like closed because of potholes. We can put the time and, put all the information. But if there's more additional information that doesn't fit within that character limit, that's where we can put it right here. So I'll just go ahead and put
Due to a water main break.
wow, I cannot spell inconvenience. I know that's not right. And
Gotcha.
there we go. I was like inconvenience. I always have to spell it out to myself in my head. Okay, so we have this in right here. This is great for, a water main break, like you said, a road closure. Maybe you have an event like the pools. Maybe one of the pools is closed.
Yeah,
There's
4th of July. 4th of July is really good for that particular one right there.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe if you have like a change of like pool hours, like maybe on a holiday, the pool's gonna be closed later to allow more people to come to them. So any type of notification that you want to get to residents, it's a push notification, so they'll receive it right then and there. So it's a great way to use it. You can add a photo in if you want. All right, so going up, we're sending this as an email and a mobile push. So they'll get both. We're also going to display it on the portal. Now we can choose a date range. So for this case, Saturday, we're gonna let them know Friday, and we're gonna let them know at noon so that they have plenty of time to know about this before it happens. And then we'll display it on the web until the time. So let's say, we're gonna display it until 10:30 p.m. just so we have some extra time in case it takes a little bit more time. So this is what we have for our notice. So I'm gonna save this as a draft so you can view it later, and then I'll show you what it looks like as a web preview. Oops. And make sure you put your geography in here as well. I'm going to go in and rename your geography. What your geography is, it's your service area boundary. So I'll just save that and go look at it. So this is what it looks like. Here's that title, and here is more information that we're going to see on it. If you're looking at this from your portal, it will show this bar that goes across your portal view right underneath your name, and it will show the same notice on it. But this is actually basically what it looks like on your phone. You can put the whole entire paragraph of information. So if you wanted to let them know, like, this is part of a like street maintenance schedule that we're going to be doing. Click right here to view more information on this. So, you know, you can put as much information in this area as you want to. Okay, do we have any other questions about notices? I know that this is something that y'all will definitely use, so I want to make sure that I go over that completely or answer any additional questions you have on it.
We got a few internal issues we'll have on
Okay.
who's allowed to do it and what is allowed to say, but that's okay.
Okay, no problem. And, you know, feel free to come in here and make these. You can schedule these as well. So, you know, we want to make sure that like maybe you go ahead and.
You're so organized. Making something a week in advance that's gonna start all of a sudden posting, yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
it's that they'll want to use it like when they have to close the street for a tree that fell. So there's lots of instances we're gonna use this from an emergency standpoint. But putting notices out there in advance is a good thing too.
Yep, absolutely agree. Yeah, some of them, you know, might be same day. You know, scheduling them too is just so great. It takes a lot off your plate, especially if it's something that's happening over the weekend and you won't be in the office over the weekend because most of y'all, I'm sure, don't work weekends. So, great way to do it in here. Okay, so that is the end of our training today. So what we went over is the call taker interface. We looked at the individual request itself. We went over the map view and all of our reports and notices. Do we have any additional questions?
Sure. Okay, we got Alicia happy. She's the most important person to keep happy.
Perfect, good.
We'll find out, you know, when it starts occurring, and getting people transitioning, it might be a very stressful time. So we'll have to